All right, joining me once again here on the Matthew Filipowicz Show is my good friend Richard Eskow. Richard is a senior fellow at Campaign for America's Future. He is also now a fellow We Act radio host in Washington, D.C. on 1480 AM. His new show, which launches this Saturday, May the 3rd, is called The 0 Hour with RJ Eskow. You can find that on weactradio.com and also another site which Richard will tell you about in a second. You can also find Richard on Twitter at RJ Eskow. Richard, thank you so much for being on the show again.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to come on the show.
All right, so Richard, I got to admit, I'm excited that you are that the show is officially launching on We Act Radio. You're part of the We Act Radio family. You know, I'm on We Act every Saturday at 8 a.m. I'm excited to be one of the lead-in shows for you. So tell us about the new show and how it came about.
Well, you know, regular listeners of the Matthew Filipowicz Show have heard your ad that begins, you know, I'm not the smartest guy out there. And so I heard that ad and I thought, there's my niche. No. The 0 Hour is basically, the idea is this. Well, for 3 hours every week, we do, you know, a 3-hour show once a week. We want to talk about what's going on in the news, what's going on economically, what's going on in the world around it, scientifically, technology breakthroughs, whatever. But we want to place it in the bigger context of the broad forces that are reshaping our world, and we want to make it entertaining and listenable. So on one show, we might have a reporter talking about how Google is using its data to manipulate people's behavior, and we might have a student activist talking about how students at Washington University are demanding that the university sever its relationship with Peabody Coal, which gives us a good way to talk about how corporations are trying to take over the entire educational system. And we might have a member of Congress. We had Alan Grayson on for an hour. We had Dean Baker, the economist, on for an hour, talking in depth about the whole Thomas Piketty book on capital and what should we really do about inequality. Or we'll do short, quick, fun stories. So, you know, we really just try to mix it up. But the whole theme of the 0 Hour is there are great forces affecting our lives nowadays, and they show up even in the morning news feed. And we want to talk about that because we think this is really the time to act. This is the 0 Hour. That's the theme of the show. This is the 0 Hour. We've got to act on climate change. We've got to act on oligarchical wealth. We've got to act on the dangers to our democracy. We've got to act on how technology could be invading and changing our personal lives. So that's the theme, and that's why, by the way, the name of the website is thisisthezerohour.com, all one word, because we think this is the time to understand and act, because it's going to affect our future for many generations to come.
No, absolutely. And I'm pretty sure, like, one of the first times you were on the show a couple of years ago, I think I remember we actually kind of had this conversation about how, so this is something you've been talking about for a while, about how, I mean, right now, this is such an important time. It's a horrific time because, you know, it does seem that so many of the cards are already stacked against progressives and actually a progressive future and the planet and pretty much everyone who breathes on the planet. But it's also a time where there's so much potential, and the actions that actually happen in the next decade are going to pretty much determine, you know, centuries of the human race going forward. What we do in the next decade or so is going to have such an impact because things are so crazy right now, and how we, you know, if we right the ship and how we right the ship, assuming we can right the ship, is actually going to affect, you know, again, the entire planet for generations to come.
Well, absolutely, and you know, people get discouraged, and I get that because the momentum is huge in the other direction with corporate forces and all that. But you know, I always say the odds have been stacked against us before. You know, the odds have been stacked against people, good guys winning in a lot of circumstances. Whether it's, you know, India before Gandhi or Mandela, you know, in the 25th year of his 27 years of captivity or whatever it might be. Actually, a little earlier, things were beginning to turn by then. But you know, you get the gist of what I'm saying. That there's no reason to be discouraged, and instead we should be inspired by the fact that we've been called to do important things, and that this is a great opportunity to do them. And if anything, we should be grateful for the trust that future generations have placed in us by putting us in, whether they know it or not, by putting us in this moment in history.
Again, I'm talking to my friend Richard Eskow, the host of the new show, The 0 Hour with RJ Eskow. You can find it at thisisthezerohour.com. One of the cool things about the show is that you guys are actually partnering with a really, really great group that has done, honestly, in the last couple of years, has done phenomenal work holding off some really, really important cuts that even Barack Obama was pushing. You're working with Social Security Works on this show. So tell us about that partnership and how that actually is working.
Well, as you know, but listeners may not, I have a background in, among other things, health economics and social insurance, and used to advise, on State Department grants and all that, other countries on how to redesign their social insurance systems, that kind of thing. So I've been writing about Social Security and Medicare for a long time, and I've been working with those guys, partnering with those guys through Campaign for America's Future, where I'm a senior fellow, and I've had a relationship with those guys for quite a while, and enormous respect for what they do. And I think there's a shared vision of the idea that in order to preserve and protect Social Security, really you have to have a broader discussion about, they really have a vision, a shared vision that you really, it's really about restating the trust, the web of trust and mutual support among generations and among different groups of people. So I think, I can't speak for them, of course, but I think if I were to put myself in their shoes, I would say they probably should support this show because they understand that this kind of viewpoint is a critical part. We can talk about how, and we do, and I do a lot, break open, let's say, the chain CPI and explain why it's a benefit cut that will hurt a lot of seniors. That's important work, but equally important work is to talk about why it is that we as a society believe that young people and old people are in this together, why that's not only an idealistic peace and love kind of statement, it's also actuarial fact. And so I think the idea that we can partner and get the message out that this is, these corporate forces, they're out to attack Social Security and Medicare for the same reasons they're out to undermine the school system or do some of the other things, or weaken environmental laws or weaken Wall Street regulation. It's kind of unrestrained wealth accumulation and greed, and that's not who we are as a people. We're not a people who believe in a jungle, an economic jungle where only the most efficient predators survive and sort of suck the blood of everybody else on the Serengeti plain. That's not how we work. That's not who we are. And if you want to defend Social Security, the best way to do it is to remind people that this program was created by a society that recognized the young and old are in this together.